Question right here, 877-881-1053. Who is your comp for Cooper Flagg, and will he be better than these recent number one picks? Look, I've definitely had some arguments with folks on the fan text. Maybe they were just trying to draw me off sides. Maybe they weren't. But one person said his comp is Keith Van Horn. Although he did go on to say, but you probably like him and Jokic because you're white. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing. Gotcha.
Sounds about white.
Yeah. Cooper Flagg is already better defensively than Keith Van Horn ever could be or would be.
Or even could dream of.
Yes, exactly. So let's just start with that. But I do think it's a good question. Like, what would you comp Cooper Flagg to? And then, do you think he'll be better than these players? And so I'll give you an example of a couple of them. But first, let's go to Cooper Flagg himself. Cut number 19. Who is your NBA player comp?
Who's your NBA player comp? And who do your friends think you play like?
I'd like to think that I could play like Kawhi. Just such a good two-way talent. I don't know if I actually do or not, but I think my friends would say someone like that as well.
All right, so let's start with Kawhi Leonard. I do see the comps there because of the size, because of the ability, because of the defensive potential. Obviously, he has a long way to go to prove that he can be Kawhi. But Kawhi Leonard, three-time NBA All-First Team, two-time champ, two-time Finals MVP. If Cooper Flagg is Kawhi Leonard, we all feel good about that, right?
1,000,000%,
Yes.
especially if we can qualify it as a healthy Kawhi Leonard. Because if he meets the Kawhi Leonard ability and stays healthy, all the resume stuff that you just gave for Kawhi looks quite a bit different.
It really does. And it's interesting because, and I know he has been hurt, but if you look at that 10-year stretch, 2015, or I guess 2014, let's even say, to 2024. So we're adding on an extra year. Or if you want to even shorten it up, all right? You know what? I'm contradicting my own logic right here. Let's go 2014 to 2021. In that span, won the NBA title twice, was Finals MVP both times. He was All-NBA First Team 3 times, Second Team 2 times, and Defensive Player of the Year 2 times. That is a hellacious resume right there.
It's incredible.
Absolutely.
He'll end up being so underrated over time just
see that.
because of the health factor.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt he's one of the best players in the last decade of NBA basketball.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Now, let's go to LeBron James. LeBron James said that one of the things about Cooper Flagg is he wants to be great. And I think that is like a really big, do you have the want to be great? And he goes, he can play with the ball. He can play without the ball. His jump shot is going to continue to get better. Super athletic, quick second jump. So all of those positives. And then here's the other thing, especially that we need to talk about with the Kyrie extension. He has the benefit, and then he threw this in there, which maybe you think it's relevant, maybe you don't. I feel like you could have done without these two words. He has the benefit, unlike myself, he gets to join a team that's established with Hall of Fame guys. Look, LeBron, we all know you're awesome. You're going to go down as, at worst, a top 3 player of all time. In my opinion, other people might feel differently, but I feel like that we're getting pretty close to a consensus on that.
Anytime you get a chance to make it about yourself, you have to capitalize
For
on
sure.
that, especially if you're the king.
Because think about it. Does this sentence still work? He has the benefit of getting to go to a team that's established with Hall of Fame guys. Yes, that sentence works perfectly.
I love, too, because he makes it unlike me when it's really unlike just about any other number 1 overall pick of all time.
Exactly.
LeBron was the one that had to deal with the fact that he was going to a bad team.
Tough break. Obviously, every other player, like you said, they went to the Showtime Lakers. Actually, the Lakers did benefit from that once. But most of the time, the whole reason, with the Wings right now, look, the Dallas Wings are not good, though it looks like they're getting better. They're not good and they got the number 1 pick, not because of luck like the Mavericks, because they were not good last year. And there's a lot of rebuilding to do. All right. But he says you got Clay, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, right off the bat, Hall of Fame coach in Jason Kidd. So I want to talk about the Kyrie Irving deal for just a second. So we found out last night Kyrie turned down the player option because, I mean, obviously this all goes together. He didn't just say that and then the Mavericks sprung into action. Like, this was the plan. And so he signed a 3-year extension for $119 million. Now, once again, that will be ended with a player option in the final year. But if you think about it, if he would have opted in, especially since he's going to probably miss a good chunk of the season, that means his extension is essentially 2 years for $76 million. What does this do? By declining that option, signing the new deal, it puts the Mavericks in position to use the $5.7 million taxpayer mid-level exception this offseason. One would think that would be to pursue a point guard.
Yes.
Now, there's already 2 names out there. One is Mark Stein on the DAngelo Russell spot. Is that who because Mark Stein is super plugged in on this team.
Yes, Mark Stein is he is that dude when it comes to Mavs reporting. Dallas is now, this is 49 minutes ago, Dallas is now regarded as a leading suitor for DAngelo Russell.
Okay, so that's one option. And the other one that we've been kicking around is Chris Paul. Look, neither one of them are particularly good shooters, but that's also not why you're using them, right? Like, you're using them to hopefully facilitate and run the offense in stretches, especially until Kyrie is back. And then your role would obviously change.
Yeah, I mean, you want somebody who can be a floor general and set guys up. Of course, you want to have the three-point shooting. I think there is definitely enough from Chris Paul and from DAngelo Russell to say, okay, that is a plus skill that you're hoping to have in this particular player. Our buddy Nick Angstad, who I believe will be joining us.
He will. The plan is for him to be in studio on Friday.
When he gets back from the NBA draft.
Yeah, that's why he can't be here on Thursday, because he'll still be at the draft.
So he has the DAngelo Russell scouting report. The good is the shooting, the 37%. And there is a year where DAngelo Russell was the 23-24 season with the Lakers, he was just under 42% from the three. Okay. And that was over 7 threes per game.
You know what? And that is an interesting point, because traditionally he has not been a great shooter, but he has been better from long range. Honestly, he's almost been better from long range at times than he has inside the paint, which is really weird.
Which is also funny because I believe on June 19th, he said, kids, don't forget to practice your mid-range jumpers. And I think he was saying that to really say it to himself. Okay, good. Like he was looking in the mirror, talking to himself when he tweeted that.
He's the anti-DeMar DeRozan.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, just under 6 career assists per game. And then he's got the chemistry with Anthony Davis as well. So there's some of the pros, but the decision making has held him back, and the defense. And so, but listen, you're not going to get a perfect player when you're talking about a $5.5 million deal.
Yeah. And so if you're just looking for somebody who can crank up the three, DAngelo Russell, I do still get that. I won't totally hold. Maybe I was a little bit harsh holding this past year against him at both of his stops being pretty rough.
He can be a little temperamental of what kind of just mood is he in? Does he even want to be good tonight? I don't know. He's got that kind of feel to him.
And see, I see the appeal from that perspective. I still think I probably lean towards Chris Paul just because he would be a better immediate fit for what I want, which is somebody who's more used to distributing the ball however you need it to be. Like DAngelo Russell at times, I mean, I know he can run the point, but he's like a combo guard to me, and so I think
you want like a thoroughbred floor general point guard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially knowing the amount of time that I need to use him, and hopefully Chris Paul would be like, hey, that's fine. I'm great with running the second unit, or, combinations. I know you don't just sub all of your players in and out like that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you would not be the presumptive starter anymore. So I'm intrigued by that, but I appreciate the job that Kyrie did by opting out and signing this deal, because the Mavericks, Nico Harrison, regardless of what you think about him, he said that Kyrie was going to be their top priority. And so by doing it like this, you do have that money now available to go ahead and pick that player up. If you can get DAngelo Russell for that spot, I'm not going to hate on it whatsoever, because he does have some of the capabilities that you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it was really just a win-win situation in terms of getting this deal done, because Dallas, as you mentioned, gets the almost $6 million for the mid-level exception, and then Kyrie gets 2 more years of security when he just tore his ACL at this age. So it was a win-win, no-brainer. Kyrie obviously loves being here in Dallas and playing for Jason Kidd, playing for the Mavericks. Nico Harrison, despite all of us not liking him, I think the Q rating for Nico Harrison in Kyrie's mind is still pretty high.
It does feel that way.
And I like the question from the 469 here. What about Bruce Brown? That's a guy that I do like.
That did get brought up before the show.
I do like Bruce Brown. I haven't seen much in the way of rumblings about him being connected to Dallas. He's kind of that combo guard as well, wing. He's not like your true point guard, though he could, like in an ideal situation, it would be your backup point guard.
Yeah.
But he brings more defense and just general versatility. And so, and championship pedigree, of course, winning with the Nuggets. So
is he signing for that?
I don't know if that's a guy that you can get for that amount.
Yeah.
He did land his post-championship sort of bigger deal.
Yeah.
So at this point, I don't know what he's going to command, and I haven't seen him really tied to the Mavericks. But that was a guy that popped up, and I'm like, I would like that because I love the idea of having a guy who can then, you're running out 5 guys at a time that you trust defensively.
Yes.
And I know, I'm willing to concede the idea that your point guard, if it's Chris Paul or D'Angelo Russell, hey, he's not going to be a great defender. But, man, you can see just a team like Oklahoma City. When you got 5 guys that can really defend, what a nightmare that is.
Yeah. And you know what? And I did see somebody bring this up, I think, about D'Angelo Russell. He can play alongside Kyrie when he comes back. And that's an interesting sell of how do you distribute the minutes then? Because, what are you going to do about Clay? Does that start to take out Jaden Hardy? Is that, and what about Max Christie? And if you're like, well, I'm going to stretch them out to 3. Okay, well, what about PJ and Cooper Flagg? How's that breakdown going to go? It's a good problem to have for the Mavericks, but I'm curious when you sit down with the agent and they're like, hey, the money doesn't bother us, but what's the playing time going to be like once Kyrie gets back? I'm sure they have a plan. I hope they have a plan. If not, that is also worrisome.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's kind of a log jam at some of these positions right now for the Mavericks, especially on the wing and stuff, but it's a long season.
For sure.
It is always maneuvering things when it comes to the rotations, and guys get hurt, especially the guys that you're going to be running out there.
Yeah.
So you're going to need all hands on deck.
So here are the number 1 picks of the last decade. And I want you to just kind of combine them all and think about averaging them out, which I know is a weird deal. Would you be satisfied if Cooper Flagg is a bizarre combination of all of these players? All right. Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, DeAndre Ayton, Zion, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, and Wemby. Oh, and Risa Shea. I know it picks up a lot there at the end because you look at it and you're like, Wiggins? Karl Anthony Towns? Okay. But then Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, and even to a certain extent, DeAndre Ayton, I feel like those would all be disappointments.
Totally.
Zion would be a disappointment because of the health. But then if I tell you, I know they're not the same player, but I'm telling you, he'll be as good as Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, Wemby, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So let's take a step back the decade before. Andrew Bogut.
No, thank you.
Andre Bargnani.
No, thank you.
Greg Oden.
No, thank you.
I have to tell you something. I was on team Greg Oden over Kevin Durant.
Listen, I get that. At the time, we were still just big man is what it's about.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that is an all-time bad decision.
Sorry about that, Kevin Durant. Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is tricky, too, because, I get it with the health, but, man, he looked like he was going to be the dude. I thought he was going to be running neck and neck with LeBron to be who is the best player in the NBA, for real.
And if it wasn't for LeBron and the super team of the Miami Heat, he is at least in the NBA Finals once or twice.
Blake Griffin, John Wall, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Anthony Bennett. We'll get to him in a second.
Yeah, and, no gracias on Bennett.
And Andrew Wiggins. So, the whole reason I wanted to go through that decade by decade is to show you, I've named you some of the best players in the NBA, but I've also named you a handful of people that were either average or in some cases, no. Anthony Bennett is the worst number one draft pick in the history of the NBA. Like, he makes, like, I know people will say Michael Olowokandi, Kwame Brown. They look like prime Magic Johnson and Larry Bird compared to Anthony Bennett. He was the worst number. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, and you're like, did you just make that name up? Go look him up. Go see what he did in the NBA.
I was just going to say, man, I need to pull up because I know Anthony Bennett is synonymous with giant monster bust, but I don't even know the specifics of, like, how many games did he even play?
Great question. Do you want to know how many games he started in his career as the number one pick?
I would love to know. There are 82
He played
4. He started 4 games.
And I know you're thinking, what season was that? No. Was he injured? No. 4. He started 4 games. All right? And you're like, well, hold on. He must have got a lot of run as a rookie. He averaged 13 minutes a game and 4 points per game because he sucked. And they realized they made a mistake because some people even had him at number 6 in what was going to be a weak draft. When he went number 1, it was shocking. It was like, what?
Yeah.
And so then he went to Minnesota, had his best season probably ever in Minnesota. Started 3 games, shot 42% from the field, 30 from 3, and averaged 5.2 points per game. He played 151 games for his career. He was really in the league for 2 years. And then teams could not pass up the lure of the number one pick. So they gave him shots in 2 other seasons. But think about this. He was the number one pick in the draft. He was out of the NBA in 4 years. He was really kind of out of the NBA in 2 years until 2 teams were like, I mean, I guess he is the worst pick in the number one pick in the history of the NBA draft.
I do love that because the Cavs get to claim LeBron and then also Anthony Bennett.
Yes.
Like they were on both sides of the spectrum on what can happen to a number one overall pick.
And think about what a weird time it is. And then you have Kyrie, like also.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Also in the mix there.
Yeah.
So you have like 2 of the players that help contribute to one of the greatest NBA games of all time. And then you have the worst player who ever went number 1.
The duality of an organization.
Indeed.